Welcome to Intellicide. This is the Exit from Afghanistan edition. I'm Anthony Gentry, and my co-host is Kyle Palmerville.
The
Welcome.
longest road. Didn't we
I
start
know.
talking like, man, you and I knew each other when that war started?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 20 years ago, bro.
God, I remember debating that war. I remember, first of all, being at work when 9/11 happened.
Right.
And then watching it happen live on TV. We'll watch the second plane hit live on TV anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But then, it was weird is that you and I worked at Chrysler at the time, and there was a lot of veterans that worked there.
Yes, absolutely. I actually was, I worked third shift then, and I was at home, and I just happened to wake up because we were getting our cable modem installed that day.
Oh, wow.
And I woke up and my wife was watching television and she's like, look at this. And we actually saw the plane fly into the second tower on the news. And yeah, it was a crazy day.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't know. It's having gone through, I know in a lot of people's minds, it's tied to 9/11 because they managed to sell it. It was a reaction to 9/11.
Well, Osama bin Laden was hiding in Afghanistan.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Which, I mean, the thing I recall that the Taliban at the time actually offered to hand him over to the U.S. before we invaded on the condition that he gets a fair trial from a third party. And the U.S. said, nope, not going to do that. And we invaded.
Yeah, listen, the thing is, and if you look at the history of wars in Afghanistan, it's never proven favorable for the people that have invaded, and it's one of those reasons why that popular line from The Princess Bride was even created. I think you just don't get into a land war in Asia.
Yeah.
So if we got to think about what the purpose of that war was. I don't think that if you look at what we were trying to do, if we were trying to bring stability to that country, I don't think it succeeded by no means. And anyone that looks at current news or whatever, and you hear about how Afghan military individuals are turning over their weapons and surrendering to the Taliban.
Yeah.
I think the only force that is of any consequence is the special forces or whatever, but they're relatively small compared to the main army. So the Taliban is coming back, but again, what was the purpose of us going into that country? If it was to create a stable regime and to change the culture, I don't necessarily think that we've done that in 20 years of having a presence over there.
No, we haven't. I mean, the fact that the Taliban was roaring back kind of says it was much like trying to hold back floodwater, right?
We've been over there for a generation. Think about that. We've been over there for a generation, and you're telling me that you couldn't, have another generation. There are children now that were born or just, young kids who have grown up during this time and now are anywhere from 20 to, I don't know, early 30s or whatever. You're telling me that those individuals can't take control of their country? That's like, people before we even went over there complained about America being the policeman for the world. And one of the things before President Biden even got into office was that, President Trump promised to end the war in Afghanistan. And he said he was going to bring the troops home. Right. So now, and we talked about this off camera, now that President Biden has set a date and is actually doing it, now people are complaining. You know, come on, that argument is hypocritical.
It's funny. There was, at the time, I remember people making the accusation that people who wanted to go into Afghanistan really wanted us to stay there forever. That they were, they were not being honest with the people when they were saying, "Oh, it's going to be real quick. We'll be in and out. It'll be real cheap. It'll pay for itself." All the things they said before we went in. And the critics were saying, "No, it's not. We'll be there for a generation. We'll be there for years, and it's not going to do anything." And most of those criticisms ended up coming true.
Right.
It's one of those historical blunders that's going to, be written about for many years to come, that most people who went through it don't understand what really happened. It was a reaction. It was a reaction as a country to 9/11. What did we go in there for? It was basically to get a bad guy. The Taliban had been built up by the media as and they're not good people. I mean, there was a lot of horror stories told about the Taliban before we went in there in the media, before they were, so it was a convenient villain after 9/11.
Right.
But it wasn't the villain that they really wanted, because you can see how they pivoted immediately afterwards into Iraq.
Dude, we've spent 2.26 trillion in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
2.26 trillion, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now think about this infrastructure bill that we got in Congress now.
Yeah. Right.
That money could have, went to infrastructure.
It's a rabbit hole, right? Because the more I think about it, the worse it gets. Because you think about all that money that we spent and what it was spent on. Bonds.
Yeah.
Things that once you spend it on that and it's used, it's gone forever. All that money is just wasted. And I don't know. I mean, I could go on and on. There was a great book. I'll see if I can find it. It was I want to say it's called 3 Cups of Tea. But basically it was about a guy who went over there, and Greg Mortensen. The book 3 Cups of Tea by Greg Mortensen. He basically went over there to build schools, and he told a story about how the people there live and what's important to them. And the title comes from the fact that in their culture, once you have 3 cups of tea with a person, they're a friend. Like you invite someone into your home, you have a cup of tea with them once, it's like, business meeting, whatever. But like, if you've had 3 cups of tea with a person, that person's a friend. And he was there on a mission to build schools. And really what I got out of that was that there had been this opportunity that if we'd really wanted to change the country and we wanted to take that money and spend it on something useful, we would have gone there and built schools. And all those kids that you talked about in this generation that grew up over there would have had a better life. I mean, all of these new fighters who are fueling the Taliban are the kids who grew up in that environment.
Right. And seeing America as their oppressors.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I used to have conversations with our old manager. I won't mention his name, but you know who he is.
Someone who's
and I used to tell him, I said, you don't change people's mentality with at the end of a gun. You point a gun at someone, they'll tell you what you want to hear while the gun is pointed to them at them. But the way that you actually change mindsets is so much more involved than that. And like you said, right, it's building schools, it's building actual infrastructure that people have a hand in and that they care about. An economy. You look at how devastated Japan was after World War II, and we dropped nuclear bombs on them. Yeah, and the Marshall Plan, you could execute something. You could have executed something like that over in Afghanistan, but we did. We like you said, we spent money on things that it's one and done.
It's the book Disaster Capitalism. Have you ever read that by Naomi Klein?
No.
I mean, it basically documents this trend, right? That there used to be this idea, after World War II, they came out with the Marshall Plan, right? They saw there was devastation and they saw an opportunity to build something better.
Right.
Which is very similar to what is happening now after the pandemic, right? The pandemic gave us an opportunity to change and build something better. But instead, there's a huge push to go back to normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go back to the way things were, to keep the status quo as it was, which is,
Right.
is, in my mind, I don't know. It all goes back to Eisenhower and his warning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, if you haven't heard that chance for peace or the Iron Cross speech by President Eisenhower, I suggest you go and listen to it or read a transcript of it, and you'll realize that right, we can't just continually support the military industrial complex the way that we have.
Not a long-term solution for humanity.
It's not, and honestly, all it is that I'll say it's almost like marketing for anything else. Like you see all these ads for blue jeans and lifestyles and this and that. You're continually going to see that. It doesn't matter what you buy. I can have the best house on the block. I'm going to see something or be advertised how I can make my house better or get a bigger house or whatever. The military industrial complex is the same way. There's always going to be better, weapon systems. There's always going to be another enemy to fight there. It's a never ending cycle.
Right. Yeah. It's such a deep rabbit hole.
It is. I mean, as far as I'm
one manifestation of this worldview, which is weird. It goes back to the whole, and I hate saying right or left because it really doesn't feel like it's a political thing, but a generational thing. Like I grew up on, sci-fi, and I grew up on the idea that, humanity and the idea of humans exploring space, right? Like from that, the perspective of humanity from that scale is changes the way that you think about humans. Like it's hard to be nationalistic when you've grown up thinking about humans and the whole planet is your people, right? And that I have more in common with people on the other side of the globe just by virtue of having grown up, living and involved on this little planet than all the differences that we have. All of those just seem so minor in comparison. Right. But I understand that my worldview is a little minority. I don't have a majority worldview in that, and it's right. So it lends, but more and more people do. I believe personally. I don't know. I believe that they do. I see that with the growth of like the anti-racism movement and things, because that kind of goes to the root of it, right? Like it's hard to be racist when you understand that we have more in common than we do differences.
Well, right. Listen, those people over there, you can, well, and I don't want to just say over there, in many places in the world, you can equate them to individuals that we look at certain areas here, Chicago. People will always say, well, if blacks were concerned with black lives or whatever, why aren't they outraged about Chicago? Now, I think that's a false equivalency argument. Right there.
It's a strong
yeah. But the problem is that they don't value their lives the same way or other lives as the way others value theirs or other individuals' lives. Right. You grow up with nothing. You grow up thinking that you have no future, that what you have is all there's going to be.
Yeah.
There are many individuals in various countries around the world that experience the same thing. They don't have enough to eat. They don't have job prospects. Even if they had a job, the amount of money that you're probably going to make is going to be barely enough to live on. So when you're faced with that prospect, what does it matter to you if you pick up a gun or put on a suicide vest and go kill some people that you perceive as the enemy?
It's so much easier to convince someone to do those things when they have no hope.
Right.
They can't see a future anyway.
Yep.
So much easier to get them to do
Right.
that.
And you know, and I was talking about an actual physical monetary cost of this war.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the emotional costs on the individuals that have deployed over there
Mm-hmm.
multiple times.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got individuals that have deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, you know, 6, 7 times
Mm-hmm.
over the past 20 years. That's a lot to take in, you know. It's hard emotionally. You might be separated from your family, your spouse, your children. You might see friends and whatever killed. That's tough. And that's why we have a lot of veterans who you look at them, and I won't say it's the same as Vietnam, because even though that war was you know, it wasn't even half as long as this one.
Mm.
The emotional impact
Yeah.
is the same. I mean, you know, it's a lot of scars, mental scars that these veterans are suffering from, and
I
people
know
don't
people
understand
who've
it.
gone there. I've obviously I didn't serve personally. I've never been there, but I know people who've gone there, and there was a war, right? But that was really quick. That was over like
Yeah,
very quickly, and we
right.
basically became an occupying force. So for
Yep.
much of those tours, people who went over there not to fight a war, but to
Right.
be an occupier, to be an
Right.
occupying, colonizing force.
Yep.
And that in itself has to have some kind of a toll. When people got there, you know, they're told, hey, you're fighting for freedom, you're going to there to spread democracy, and then they get there and they realize, oh, we're just occupying this place, you know,
Yeah.
we're a
Yeah.
police state, you
Yeah.
know.
Hey, I'm spreading democracy, man. I'm
Right.
spreading democracy.
Yes. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that toll on the people who had to go there on
Yeah.
both sides. I mean, the
Yeah.
occupiers and the occupied, it's terrible.
Right.
You know, it's
Yep.
but at the same time, like you mentioned, because of the fact that it wasn't built up, we spent all of our time over there basically just spending money on arms.
Right.
That's basically what it was. It was a
Yep.
large expenditure in order to give profit to, because that's the whole problem with defense industry, right? Military industry is that they make bombs for a living. And once you have enough bombs and if you're not dropping bombs on somebody, then you're not buying bombs.
Right.
So they
Right.
need you to go drop bombs on somebody, because then you need to go buy more bombs.
Hey man, I got 100,000 bombs. You know, they're about to expire. What am I gonna do with them?
I mean, that's another problem, you know. So this having that industry and having it be, you know, so
Right.
prevalent in the halls of power makes
Yep.
those kinds of decisions by those who lead the country almost inevitable.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, no.
But
Well, you know, I'm of the opinion that hey, we need to get out of there. We need to, you know, go ahead and end the longest war in American history. I
so
don't know what other people
I
what their opinions are.
I agree with you. Now, like I mentioned, I never went in the military. I didn't serve. I grew up my my father was in the military. My father actually served in both the Army and the Navy. He was a very big
Uh-huh.
military guy. And but I didn't go in. Um, I personally feel a responsibility as a non-military citizen, because that's kind of the whole thing, right? In America, the military is supposed to be run by the civilians, and the
Uh-huh.
civilians are supposed to have a say over what they use the military in.
Right.
It's not supposed to be the military calling the shots like some kind of junta, you know.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and so personally, I felt the responsibility that we should be making better decisions. And after 9/11, I actually went and protested against the idea of invading Afghanistan, because I thought it was going to be a waste of a generation and $2 trillion. But I
Yeah.
remember at the time that when we went and protested it was over in Troy, Michigan, and President Bush came to give a speech, and we went to protest, and we were all gathered up and herded into a chain link cage
Yeah.
labeled a free speech zone. And that's
Right.
basically what they did. They put all the protesters in a cage away from the
Right.
cameras. And,
Right.
you know, that was how they were treated.
Yep.
Um,
Well, I mean,
and
you know,
that's how that's basically why there was, when you take away people's options for a peaceful resolution in something, it inevitably makes them take up non-peaceful means. And that is a lot of what has happened over the last 20 years in America, is that we've seen peaceful protest become criminalized and attacked and marginalized to the point that many people feel that peaceful protest is simply ineffective, doesn't work. They've found mitigations for it. And so they're turning to other means. And that's why, you know, last summer you saw a lot more violence. It still continues in the Pacific Northwest to this day. I mean, there's a lot more of that kind of activism, you know, the black bloc anarchist kind of violent revolutionary mindset. And it happens on both the right and the left. And a lot of it happens because they don't feel like they have a peaceful resolution.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, and we have to wrap it up, but yeah, you know, the thing that I wanted to say here in closing is that when you look at what we gave up, the freedoms that we gave up after 9/11, and we you know, like willingly gave up those things with the Patriot Act, we didn't understand the cost. And we also didn't understand, you know, this zero sum, you know, belief that, hey, you're not supporting the troops if you're out here protesting.
Right.
No, that, you know, it's not necessarily one or the other. That, hey, if I'm protesting, that doesn't mean that I don't support the troops.
Right.
Same thing. Right. I mean, same thing with Black Lives. You know, if I say Black Lives Matter, that doesn't mean that all lives doesn't matter. Right. You know, we gotta stop.
It really is one of those things that the military soldiers themselves are not in a position to question the orders they're given. It's the responsibility of those not in the military, the civilians, to question those orders.
Right.
Exactly. On behalf of the soldiers, because the soldiers
they work for us. I mean, you know, it's the reason why Congress is supposed to, you know, vote on the act of war or whatever. But we've gotten away from that. I mean, and that goes way back. You know, you can say that goes back to Clinton and maybe even earlier, where they've conceded a lot of that authority.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up.
All right.
So yeah, that's the U.S. getting out of Afghanistan. Yay!
Yes, sir. I know.
I mean, it's one of those things. We never should have been there in the first place. It's going to be chaos after we leave, but
yep, it is. But you know,
I hate to say I told you so, but damn it.
Right. All right.
Tell us.
Signing off.